No press the cross button to start lady this time, we're jumping right into it. I've had this clip in the vault for quite some time. We're going to be hauling ass through Finland in a little WRC Mini Cooper. This stage gives us a few interesting things to talk about. A lot of big crests, big jumps, many of which are blind, over straights, over turns. A lot of change of pace from these long flowy straights into tighter turns where you have to have big brakes. A few Scandi flick situations. Because we're on this loose surface, we can talk about having early inputs and having minimal inputs too. So we want to steer early, and we want to steer only as much as we need, so we're not sliding and then recorrecting ourselves needlessly. Also, as I go through these long straights over these crests, here it happened to line up nicely, but I like to upshift over those crests so that when my wheels are in contact with the ground, I can maximize the amount of time I'm accelerating, and then only when I lose contact with the ground do I then upshift. In this stage, it kind of lined up pretty nicely with the upshifts and those crests. So when situations like that appear, I do like to take advantage of them. Looking at this camera angle here, we can see just how minimally I'm giving steering inputs. And I'm trying to get all my steering and direction changes done before we hit those crests. And here I kind of like land too far on the inside. I have to correct myself early and quickly there. At the end of this, there's going to be a dip and a crest. We have to turn ourselves in before we go light over the crest, or else we'll start to understeer. So always get your turn in done and angle set before you go over the tops of these crests. Especially when they're big crests like this, right? You can't turn when all wheels are in the air. And unlike the last video we did it with the Alpine rear-wheel drive, where we want to be quick on the hands to counter steer and catch that drift, here with all-wheel drive we want to stay flat on the gas and sometimes hold that steering in there and fight the urge to counter steer as we're kind of clawing our way through some of these turns with the steering held in. That front wheel, it's almost like a jet ski effect where you got to be turned and on the power to change direction. In this little section, we have the situation here where we're hauling a lot of ass from these straights, these sixes, these fives, and into that tight little three. And then later down here, we're going to be doing the same into a tight two. So we want to try to use as much speed as we have already made up on that straight prior, and use the racing line, start on the outside, cross into the inside, let the crown of the road kind of hug you in on the inside at this turn as well, and then end up powering out as fast as we can and letting the power kind of drift us back to the outside of the turn. That way we can kind of carry as much speed as we can through that turn. And we've reached the Scandi portion of the stage. So I do a slight little right before going left on both those turns here. So it's not a lot, but it's enough to get the weight transferred. And when we shift that weight from one side to the other, it really helps us rotate into these left-handers. Here I kind of overcooked it a little bit, used the handbrake to get me out of there. And you can see just how little bit I'm turning right, and I already have momentum going to the right, and then I switch it over going to this left. So it's a very slight right turn before going left. And then I am lifting off the brakes just slightly, turning left, back on the brakes, coming off the brakes on the throttle the whole time. Staying on the gas kind of helps here as you change that momentum shift going from right to left. A little bit of a blip in that situation helps the car really rotate around. So like the start of the stage, we have to set ourselves up before we go over these crests. Be mindful for where we're going to land after the crest. Staying brave and flat through here, taking that racing line, getting nice and close to the inside of the apex and powering out. And look at how early these steering inputs are coming in. So we're trying to be tidy over the crest and here early on the hands, flat on the gas, close inside on the apex, and then running wide on the exit. Trying to maintain as much speed as we can, really just chucking ourselves through this corner and trying to keep up our momentum, taking it all the way to the edge. So now we find ourselves maxed out, hitting top speed, coming into this right four, trying to find the minimal amount of braking we need to do so we can just chuck ourselves through that turn while carrying all this speed that we've made on this straight. It's kind of easier said than done, try and give ourselves the biggest radius we can so we can carry as much speed as we can through that turn. Really kind of like chucking ourselves in there, staying tight on the inside, on the apex, going out wide. Again, over these crests, having to be mindful of where we're going to be landing, because up here it gets narrow, so you can't take this too fast because you have that quick left-hander there coming up. So it gets really narrow and you have to be really mindful of where you're landing past those jumps. Likewise here, you're going up and then turning, so you have to turn right at the top of that crest. You have to be mindful to put some weight back on the front of those wheels so you can initiate that turn in. So here, you can't go too far left because you have that left turn coming up, so trying to set yourself up nicely. And again, look at the hands, look how early the hands are. Setting myself to land past the crest so I can make the next turn, especially this one, very tricky with the house on the outside. Going down to here, a little bit of an understeer opportunity here, so again, kind of be careful as we go over the top of that crest. A little bit of left foot braking to put some pressure down on those front wheels so we can really initiate that turn in. This corner is just sweet. Found just the right amount of angle and powered all the way through it. Not understeering, not oversteering, just the right amount. Nailed it through there. Coming up onto another scanning situation where again you'll notice it's going to be just a slight left to go right. And this one wasn't super beautiful, I'll admit. Kind of didn't get enough momentum going the opposite direction to really get a really effective slingshot into that tight right. I did end up using that handbrake to kind of help myself along.
5 right short, 70.
So we're approaching the end of this, and just as we're approaching the end of this, I also don't want to bin it along these last turns. So I take this one a little bit more cautious than I otherwise would. Definitely could have carried some more momentum and kind of flung myself out a little bit more wide on the exit. Over these crests, we're going to be going downhill and braking for a hairpin, so as we're going downhill and braking, being mindful to brake a little bit more early. A little bit too early, so we got off the brakes on the gas and just didn't quite clean it up on the exit as much as we would like. But if you ever find yourself braking blindly into a tight turn and you found that you've braked too soon, just coming off those brakes a little bit, getting on the gas or staying in on the gas as you're braking will help extend that braking zone a little bit. But of course, into a hairpin, always better to brake earlier than brake later and then just toss yourself in the wrong direction as you overshot your hairpin, right? But yeah, guys, if you have any questions, just leave a comment below. Likewise, if you have any requests or things you'd like to see. I think this time here was good enough for 4th overall. And I'm happy with that, so thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.